behalf of all of us here live on the floor,
Yeah.
please welcome Shane Olson and Matt Thorup to the main stage, ladies and gentlemen.
How's it going, everyone? I mean, I guess, right? So let me introduce us, I guess. So I'm Matt Thorup. Some of you might know me as the Redbeard from online. I don't know why. Or from my work as Nicolas Cage's stunt double in Face Off. There's like 3 people that got the joke out there, and I'm their friend. And so we are from Avalanche and Disney Interactive. This is the very talented and beautiful Shane Olson.
Oh, thank you very much.
So we are 2 character artists over at Disney Interactive, and we are on the team that we sculpt and handle the characters that make these beautiful characters for Disney Infinity. And so today what we're going to go over is our design process of what goes into making the Disney Infinity characters. You know, our collaboration efforts with the concept artists, our collaboration efforts with Disney and Lucas and some of the external studios that we work with, and you know the struggles that we go with that happen, and some of the happy mistakes that happen as well. So what I was going to do, I guess, a little bit about me and my background is I come from a graphic design background. How I got into the industry actually was I was an artist. I was a 2D artist, and I figured, like, you know, I didn't tell anyone I was an artist. Because you don't tell anyone you're an artist. That was embarrassing, you know. You kind of hide it from people. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then one day I watched The Incredibles, and I was like, what is this? This is mind-blowing. And I figured, like, this is what I want to do. But, like, nobody was teaching it anywhere, so I figured, like, I'll be a graphic designer. And so I'm like, because I guess that's what you do. So I became I self-taught myself graphic design and got a job as a graphic designer making logos, you know, for a nickel an hour. Did that for a few years, got kind of good at it, and then saw this school that taught this new program called ZBrush. And I was like, oh, whoa, wait a second. What happened to the squares? What happened to like all the little squares that you just kind of move around one point at a time? And they're like, no, this is cool. Just do this. And so I went to this school, and you know, after, lo and behold, like a few years later, I got an opportunity to work at Avalanche, working on this new game called Disney Infinity with these incredibly talented sculptors, such as Shane and these group of 6 sculptors. And they taught me a lot, and luckily allowed me to join their team after they beat me with sticks. So lo and behold, I'm now part of their team. And so this is let me talk to you about some of the stuff that I've done with them. Some of the stuff that you've seen are some of the characters I've made are up here. Here are the couple of characters for 3.0 that I've made. This is actually a team effort that Han Solo is not mine. I can't claim credit for him. I mainly sculpted his face and a little bit on his pose, but really it was a joint effort. I think every single one of us on the team sculpted Han Solo. So I wanted to show him, and because he was a collaborative effort. Kanan was really fun because we had the whole concept team come together, and then Chewie was a whole lot of fun, and he's another story. But I don't want to talk about these guys today. I just wanted to show them real quick. Oh boy, don't do that. Anyways, I wanted to talk about 2 characters specifically for 3.0. And these are the two characters. The first one I wanted to talk about was Kora. Kora was really fun because when first asked to design Kora, first off, like, you're asked to design a character based on Olivia Wilde, you don't say no. And this is no offense to my expecting wife, who Olivia Wilde doesn't hold a candle to. It was just like, this is going to be great. But the turnaround on this character was super tight. I had, I think it was 6 days. And we were designing not only her, but we were designing Sam at the same time. And another extremely talented sculptor on our team, Brad Bolender, was doing him. And these characters needed to not only be finished, but they needed to look and feel like they existed and were designed together basically by the same person. And so we worked hand in hand on these characters, bouncing ideas off each other. And so all that I had was this initial sketch from our lead concept character artist, John Diesta, was this. And we had this idea of who Kora was. She was created from a digital environment, and she was very angular. She's really a princess. She was a princess character, so she was very elegant, and she had these very elegant, but she was also very active. And we wanted to have these ideas as shape language ideas to her. So, and this was to get the idea of this was her final pass, and to know that this needs to be done in one of the quickest turnarounds that I think that we've ever had for one of our characters. And so I'm like, okay, do you want to do it? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? I guess you don't say no. And so we're going into that character, and so this is my first pass on this character, just to get prepared, I guess. Was this. And I did this character in black and white with no color. Was this. And this doesn't happen, where out of the gate, first pass, she looks pretty good. From the art director, he's like, whoa, this is really hitting all the spots. Everything's really angular. She's, we're losing those soft shapes that normally our princesses have in the game. She's a lot more angular. She's not perfect, of course, but we're hitting the big, broad shapes right away. And, Brad and I were working really, pretty closely to we want to hit these layers together. And then we also wanted to have some kind of refined under detail, which we've never really had before in any of our characters. We've really tried to hit this. We've tried to be true to these very vinyl style of characters. But we wanted to try something with some underlay detail. So we did this fun technique using the UV master. And I wanted to show this technique and here real quick, if you guys don't mind. So, and let's append a new tool here. So basically the idea is we made a plane, or I made a plane. Let's make that 3D. And so after I made a plane, I just hit project, and this automatically separates things into polygroups. So you have your top plane and your bottom plane, and then it surrounds it with a thickness, and it's all separated into polygroups. And so basically we have this, which all it is. And so I would crease that, and I'm doing this for the sake of speedness here, creasing these polygroups, subdivide this thing up a few times, and so then I could have some form to this. Like, let's have some interesting form there. And feel free to be rowdy. If you guys have questions, raise your hands or just yell. I mean, Louie's dying to ask questions. He gets antsy when he's not talking, so.
Sitting over here like a caged animal.
Yeah.
A caged beast. Feel free to misbehave.
Yes, feel free to misbehave. So I'd have the form. I'd first get the form, make sure, then I have my poly groups already set, run up to this UV master here, work on clone, and it's pretty simple right now. I can just hit polygons, hit unwrap, do a quick, flatten just to make sure that everything's there. Unflatten, copy my UVs, go back to this dealie here, paste my UVs, and now when I go into my surface, just hit noise, and I can load my alpha. And for this case, I just created a simple circle alpha. Turn off the noise scale, and I'm just making sure to turn off 3D and just using noise. And you can start to see it. And basically, I just made this, and me and Brad shared this. We kind of compared we actually played off of how deep do we need to go for it not only to not be too busy in the character, but also to show up once it's mass produced, because it was this fine line of and that's going to draw way too much attention, but also it's all not going to show up once it's finally that size. So we had to play around quite a bit. We actually did a lot of prototyping. And once we were happy with that, we had to play around with some ideas. And we're only worrying about one side, so it didn't matter that the seams were not lining up, so we didn't have to bring it into another program, line up the seams and things like that. We just worried about the exterior side. So for example, you can see on this, we had that rough idea, I don't know if you can see it up there, of the initial pass of what it would look like. But this was obviously not deep enough. But then we jumped into starting to add color, to start bringing some more of herself out. And she started to become like this. And so now in this phase, because it's such a quick turnaround, and I'm oh yeah, and by the way, during this process of this quick turnaround, I'm leaving on vacation. And the whole team is also on vacation. So we had one of our partner companies, Ninja Theory. We have a great team over there, and we sent it over to this modeler, Jean. And I'm going to kill her last name. It's Hing Hu, and she's going to hate me for that. But she actually did the first pass on the pose. And this is her first pass on the pose here. So this is her first pass on the pose, and it's nearly perfect. It's great. She killed it. She did such a good job. Everything's really dynamic, and it's not a straight arm. She's got these great kinks in it. There's a little bit of balance issues that I corrected from it, but it was really, really strong. There was just little things I corrected, just head size manufacturing issues, but she did a really good job. So this is what we ended up with, but it was, it's sometimes kind of hard to let go of your character, especially when you work by yourself a lot, but you see a lot of benefits, and you can really see some great things that other people can bring to the table. when you're working in a collaborative system like this. So I just wanted to bring one side of like the tale of what happens when a character basically goes right from the get-go. Now this doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. Shane's seen it. Rarely, and this is like an anomaly. I'm going to tell another story of a character that doesn't go so great, and that's okay. And I want to make sure that everyone understands that I think this is what people expect, is that this is what happens all the time. This is what happens 1% of the time. Most of the time, this doesn't happen. But this is probably the expectation, and this may be even the expectation from a lot of art directors, but it's not what happens. So I'm going to tell a very different tale on our other character. So the other character that I want to talk about is this guy. And this is a guy that I requested to work on. So when we started Disney Infinity 3.0, we have, your wish list of like, who do you want to work on? And he was probably my number 1 or number 2, and I think my number 1 was Chewie, and my number 2 was Darth Maul, and because mainly I thought he would be really hard, and he was. And this is our final Darth Maul, and he was probably one of the hardest characters I've ever worked on. He was really, really challenging, and mainly because with what we wanted to do with Star Wars, we had some limitations, which isn't a bad thing. Like, limitations are really nice, but it's good to have those limitations to bring you in. But with Darth Maul, we kind of wanted to push our envelope to see how far we could stylize one of our characters, because in the whole philosophy behind our Disney Infinity characters mainly is we want to stylize them to a degree that they're definitely stylized, but you instantly recognize who that character is. They instantly feel like the character. Notice that I'm not saying they look like the character, but they feel like that character inside and out. And that's what we want. So, but we really, really wanted to push Darth Maul. And so we had some really, really interesting concepts. So this is one of the first initial concepts that was being pushed really hard, which is awesome. Like, this is so cool. This is one of the early concepts by John Diesta, and it's really, really cool. But the thing that was missing from it is it just doesn't feel like Darth Maul when you see Darth Maul. He's not this big, broody guy. He's not someone that's going to go, like, punch through a door and, have everything explode. He's a lot more ninja-like. And though it was cool, it was just not hitting that mark. And so we went down some different paths. And one of our other incredibly talented concept artists, Jason Kim, started coming up with an idea that looked like this, which was really cool. He's one of our more ominous villains, so we wanted to have a lot more sharp angles to him, a little bit more darker presence, and so we started going down this path. And so we started playing around with that direction. And so as I started developing that idea in concept, things started to go wrong, because Disney Infinity, one of the limitations that we deal with is that we have, now Shane, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have probably over 100 characters in our game, right? Close to 100.
I lost count.
Yeah, we lost count. And because we have so many unique characters, we have to confine to certain rigs, which again is okay to have limitations to this. So we have to find somewhere where this guy fits into one of these things. So as I'm developing this concept, though this concept is killer, we're trying to fit this concept into one of our rig boxes. And it's not really working out, and we can instantly tell that it's not working out. He's a little too small, he's a little too nerdy, he doesn't feel dark, he doesn't really feel menacing, so we're going to bump him up a little bit. And I start pushing around some shapes, but now he's feeling almost too evil, a little bit too evil even for a kid's game, especially like in the eyes, a little bit too sinister. And he's kind of even feeling like a football player, which is, again, just not what we wanted. And so we start revisiting some things and some ideas. Let's see where we get going on this. And there's another concept that John Diesta comes up with that starts lengthening him, because we just start pushing him around. And so we just come up with this idea. And so I start sketching around some ideas myself, because why not? And I sketch out something like this that pushes him a little bit more towards what the actor looks like. And just, to push my own 2 cents in. And at the same time, we start working with, this whole time during this process, we're working with an incredibly talented traditional sculptor by the name of Darren Marshall, who actually worked on the concept art for the Clone Wars. He worked on the traditional sculpts for the Clone Wars, and we thought, who better to take advice from than someone that's worked on the Star Wars franchise themselves. So I'll show this image. And so he started coming up with some ideas, which really, had some good ideas for the body to help us find a balance between what would work for the better proportions to make him look bigger without making him look bulky, and better proportions for the head. And so we really riffed off each other. Me and him actually, sent versions back and forth until we got to this, which actually started to feel a lot more like Darth Maul. And then this whole time we're still trying to battle it out in our brains of like, so what does Darth Maul actually wear? Because he has like 17 different layers. If you watch the films, and we'd watch and pause and like, okay, what does he actually wear? And so once we were actually satisfied with this general idea of what he was looking for, we're like, okay, so we're pretty happy with his T-pose. Now we're going to push it into his pose. And our first idea is we just want to get something pushed in there. We don't want any really idea of like a form. We just want to get something in there to feel things out. It's going to be sloppy. It's going to be ugly. We just want the overall gesture, and that's what we have. Just a quick, simple push of like, okay, will the overall balance work? Will the overall look work? Is it going to, are things, pushed too far? And that's all we want. So once we have it there, we start refining things. And so we start playing around with things, and then different obstacles start presenting themselves of like, okay, are these twirly bits, are they going to be thick enough to hold up? So we start doing test prints, and so we do all of our prototyping in-house. We have an EnvisionTech printer, and we set up all of our prints ourselves. We handle all the prints ourselves. We clean up our prints ourselves. We get print resin in our eyes ourselves. It burns, if you're wondering. We do it all, and it's quite fun and painful. But, so we learn very quickly, like, what's going to be too thin. But we also, we find what some solutions. So things start to feel like really blocky, and we try to find solutions to these. And that's something that we wanted to find. We didn't want it just to feel like a block like these things. So we tried to find different solutions of like, okay, we want it to flow a little bit better. And I don't know if that comes across here, but anyways, we'll get to that. But apparently what the art director felt like wasn't enough here was going to be, we needed more twirly bits. The official word was twirly bits. So we added like 17 more twirly bits to give him more life. And we studied so much on the twirly bits. I can't emphasize enough. And then so we are down the line on this, and the back and forth on Lucas, and they love this. They're really happy about where it is. And we're probably a couple days out from sending it to manufacturing. We've gone through multiple levels of like working with Lucas on like getting approvals through this, and we're about to send it off to the factory. And our art director, our main art director, Jeff Bunker, comes in and he looks at it and he says, "Oh, that's great. Is that going to fit in the box? Because it's got to fit in the box." And I look down at it, because he's the only character that has 2 lightsabers coming out of it. And I'm like, nope, yep. And this is like, I'm like freaking out, because we were so concerned about getting this pose to feel like Darth Maul, like he's gonna kick some Jedi butt, and that like I don't even know what happened, because normally we stress that.
Right. We have a box that we bring in.
We have a box,
yeah.
like a digital box. We took 3 weeks to sculpt this box.
Speaking of boxes, guys. Speaking of boxes, there's a question here on the Twitter feed.
Oh yeah.
Do you guys use image planes for reference? From Fernando D. I'm going to butcher this. Fernando D. Ivone at Maria.
You want me to take this one?
Yeah, go for it.
So we actually use Spotlight. I learned this from the one and only Joseph Drust. And what I'll do is I'll take all the background coloring and I'll turn it to black. And then I'll take the image itself and I'll pop it up just so it's not black, any of the darkest areas. And then if you load it into Spotlight, you can hover it instead of using the image planes. Because when you're using image planes and you're in there sculpting, it whips them all around and you have a hard time seeing it. But if it's Spotlight, you can hover it and just park it right there. And when I go up there, I'll show you, there's a little spot where you have to turn off projection so the brushes will work when you have that going. But that's how we use our references. Yeah. That work?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, and so we have this box. Anyways, and so like we're kind of freaking out, because this is a dramatic pose and he holds it in a very like dramatic way. And now I'm like, oh man, I wanted this character and now yeah. Anyways, so Jeff leaves and I'm like, I've got this idea. So I turn off everything but the lightsaber, bring in the box, and I pose it, just the lightsaber, in just the right way that only the lightsaber can fit, basically. Like if the box is here, it only fits like from tip to tip. There's no other way this lightsaber can fit in this box is from tip to tip. Like if it tilts any other way, it's not going to fit inside this pose. And I reposed just the arm to make it fit just like that, and then kind of fix and just repose the arm. And he comes back in like 20 minutes later, and he's like, "Does he fit in the box?" And I'm like, yes, Jeff. Fits in the box now. And so then he threw confetti in the air, and everyone was happy again. And
The Ewok celebrated.
he said, "Okay, you don't have to clean out your desk this week. Next week, though." So yeah, but I mean, it's kind of like it's interesting because like I still feel like a really young dude. Like I grew up watching this stuff.
I'm sitting right here, right?
Yeah, I mean, this guy's like
Ancient.
76 and kind of dying next to me, and like to think like I had never dreamed that I would be a part of making any of this, and it's to think that I was in any part related to making anything related to Star Wars, anything related to Disney. It's just mind-boggling, and it's really like a humbling experience to be here to like talking about making this. Is like my heart's crying inside right now. So I mean, this is just, anyways. So thanks for coming out. This is my spiel of
Matt Thorup, everybody.
Yeah.
That's Matt Thorup, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Thorup. Keep it going. Keep it going.
All right.
You're
What
gonna
are
switch
we
over.
looking for or looking at on time?
Say again. Give me 1 second.
All right. How's it going, everybody?
Yeah.
I'm Shane Olson, and I work with this guy at Avalanche, Disney Interactive, and I've been at Avalanche for, next October, it'll be 10 years. Yeah, I'm an old guy. And before that, I worked at like six different studios. We're from Utah, that's where Avalanche is. Avalanche existed, and then Disney came in and bought them. They made this game called Tak and the Power of Juju. Caught their attention. They're like, that studio's got something going on. So they made the purchase, and I came on right after Disney bought them. I've been doing games for, like 15 years, 1998, something like that. So when he says The Incredibles is what inspired him, if you guys remember Wall-E B, the first Pixar short, that's what inspired me. I'm like, I'm going to do that. It's like the first thing ever. So yeah, I'm feeling really old, thanks. Okay, I'm just going to load up my interface really fast, and then I'm going to show you some stuff I've done. You guys watched the Sculpt Off yesterday? Anybody? Yeah? That was a lot of fun. The most stressful 3 hours of my life, but it was great. Let's see. No. Okay. We all make our custom user interfaces, and because I do have to say, if ZBrush didn't exist, this would be a huge, huge pain in our rears. I don't think we could do this without ZBrush. So this has been amazing, and I love how customizable the user interface is. And we do things differently. We each have tutorials and stuff up on Gumroad and stuff, and you'll see that we do things a lot differently from each other. And that's really nice with ZBrush because it allows you to do it your own way. So let's see.
Just
I'm gonna open
close
this.
that,
Okay. Okay, so here are some of the characters I've done. Let's see, like Olaf and Ahsoka. Yeah, she's in the starter pack with Anakin. Small image. Anakin was kind of like Darth Maul in a way that he didn't come together right away. It was really, really hard getting a likeness for the actor, and this pose. And he also has all these, what is it, twisty bits, right?
Twirly bits.
Twirly bits, sorry. And Joy from Inside Out. And Venom, Tinkerbell, Syndrome. I love Syndrome. That's another thing we have to think about is we have this little weight that we got from the factories. We have to test the points to make sure they're not too pointy. Some little 3-year-old's gonna poke their eye out. So, like, we had to polish down the points on Syndrome's hair. They were too pointy. And, Spider-Man. And it takes a small army to put these together. We sculpt them, but there's a lot of people that come in and help us with the renders and help us with the animation and the audio, and it takes a ton of people to make our stuff look good. So thank you, everybody at Avalanche and the outside companies. This is Randall. This is one of the characters that was like Kora for me. He came together like in a day, and because he's really simple. And Gibbs, Mickey, everybody knows that guy, right? Lightning McQueen, and Loki. All these guys. Barbosa was awesome. He came together pretty fun too. Tracks, okay. But I wanted to show you guys, I did, when he asked to do Darth Maul, my favorite character from Star Wars, well, one of them is Boba Fett. And I'm a huge Boba Fett fan. And he was also a really big challenge because I'm not a hard surface sculpting guy. So I wanted the challenge, and so I requested to do that one. And here is the concept and the final image of him. And you'll see a bunch of the drawings from the concept department. Yeah, we have some of the best artists in the country working at Avalanche. We're so lucky to have these guys working with us. And you'll notice we don't usually get turns. A lot of people ask, do you ask your concept artists for turns so you can see them from the side and from the front? And I don't know about you, Matt, but I prefer not to have turns. I prefer to have the 3/4 because the 3/4 is really selling that figure. And you can see the essence of Boba Fett in this pose. And they kind of just become stiff and lifeless. And it also forces the concept artist to dig back into their brain and see what they were thinking and dissect it themselves. And they're usually not 3D guys. And so it's kind of difficult for them to dig back into their brain and pull that stuff out. I would rather try and do it myself and then ask them, is this kind of what you were thinking? It's really nice to go back and forth with our concept artists and our directors and even the other character people. Bring them in and just say, what, is this working? What do you think about this? And as far as the styling goes, Boba Fett's a complex character. He has a lot going on. So how do you simplify a character that's that involved? And so we also get together and talk about, what can we omit? What are the most important things that Boba Fett has that he needs to have, like his little rockets and spikes and shooters on his arms and the backpack and all that kind of stuff. And so we come to the conclusion of where we should go with that. And we also, and there's color in mind too. So, and you'll notice these poses over here. What we do with these is I will build a T-pose of him first, like this, and you'll notice the backpack's all horrible, and just some of the designs, like this little wrist thing is not working out, and we're missing some details. But we'll go to the low-resolution version of this, and if I'm using Dynamesh and stuff like that, I will actually Z-remesh it, and just to get a rudimentary low subdivision level for that piece, and then we will take the low-resolution mesh, throw it over to our rigging department. They'll rig it up inside Maya, And then we have this amazing concept artist, Jason Kim. He's really, really good at posing characters. And so he will take the low resolution mesh and he will just go bonkers with trying all these different poses. And he'll get together with some of the other concept guys and come up with, what is a good Boba Fett pose? What says Boba Fett about this guy? And so we go back and forth as an OBJ, and when we also can send this to the like LucasArts, for example. We'll send this over to LucasArts, and they will say that one, and they'll pick the pose, and then what we'll do is we'll bring it back, we'll refine it, and sometimes we don't have the character ready yet. You'll see back in the background right here, this is Nova, and so because Nova is on the same rig that Boba Fett is, so we wanted to try some poses out really quick, and he was already rigged, so we didn't have to wait. And then we came back and posed the real guy. And how we work that out is, so I'll have the T-pose guy, and then we'll go to T-pose master to go to pose him. And there's a technique we use after you go down to the low resolution mesh. You can import an OBJ as another subtool. And so we will import the pose that was done in Maya as an OBJ as a template after you've gone down to the T-pose master. And so there's two subtools in there. And we'll use that because you can use the transparency stuff and match him. And you can also use our artistic tendencies to get him looking as good as we can. And then before you go back up to the high resolution mesh with the T-pose master, you have to make sure you delete that second subdivision, and then it'll go up just fine. So that's how we get our poses. And in the workshop tomorrow, I'm going to go over that in detail for those of you going to that. So let's see what else. And you'll notice he's beige, and this is kind of how you see him in the film. And LucasArts came back and they said, we want to make him blue. We're like, you want to make him blue? What do you want? And they're like, yep, the very, very first Kenner toy that was ever made of Boba Fett was blue. And these are the colors that they had. And I wish I could show you the reference, but it's like lock and key, we can't. They literally built this room, and with the room, like the security, you can't take your cell phone in there, and yeah, it was nuts. So they keep their stuff under lock and key pretty hard. Anyway, I think Sideshow made a more recent one, and he's also blue. So this is the final version. After everything, I'm gonna open this up in ZBrush so you can see. Let me start with a whole new thing here. That's another thing really, really quick. It's hard for me not to interject all these things that I do, but I always start with a brand new Z project when I start a new character. Not Wax Sphere though. Because then it cleans everything out, it cleans all the Z tools out of here, and then I can import or I can load a tool into that scene. So also usually we'll start with, now that we're on to Infinity 3.0, we have a lot of characters, a backlog of characters, and we have the skinny bodies and the medium bodies, the males, the females, all that. And if we're starting a humanish character, sometimes we will bring in and we'll kit bash. So this is a medium character here, and this is actually from one of Matt's sculpts. He did Falcon from Marvel, and this is where he started. And so with a character like Darth Maul or whoever fits on a medium, we'll start with a guy like this, and then we'll just start building parts onto him. So I will show you how we build parts onto him in a minute. And so as far as our workflow goes, we will build the T-pose first, like this, and we will push it as far as possible. So this is after. I don't think I have a version of him before going to pose, but this is we take him to T-pose as far as we possibly can, and we also have to keep manufacturing things in mind. So for his antenna on his helmet, you'll see how we had to set it right down on his helmet. We can't have it floating up above because it'll break off, and we have to thicken that thing up. And it's not really that thick in the films. And we have to thicken up all these different parts, and he has these braids that go around, you know, these Wookiee braids, I guess, that go around his shoulder, and they hang and they fly. And we couldn't really have those hanging off, so we had to come up with a solution to wrap them around his shoulder. And we also have to send all these decals to the factory. We have to make them up in Adobe Illustrator. We have this amazing concept guy, Ben Simonson. He does a fantastic job making all these decals, like Lightning McQueen. He just went nuts on him. And so anyway, we have to figure out, and we have to pay attention to all the undercuts and how it all assembles. And then when we get to this point and our art directors have cleared it, then we can take it into pose. And we'll pose it just like I explained before. And then we will discover a lot of things in the pose. And a lot of things change. Let's see. So I'm actually showing you the reverse of it. So my T-pose didn't look like this. So here's the final guy. And you'll notice this ruler in here. ZBrush doesn't really have specific units like Maya or anything like that. So we build, well, I built this ruler at 140 millimeters. So when I use the 3D print exporter, I can set it to exactly 140 millimeters, and anything within that build volume will export at the right size. So that's why that's in there. So I'll hide that. And I always build everything. And here's a version of the cape. Our art director, John Diesa, wanted to see a different cape to see what it would look like coming off of the other side for better flow. So this was an idea that we had. But every picture that you see of Boba Fett, he's got his cape hanging off his left side. And so we couldn't hang it off the right side and have it blowing in the wind that way. So we just went back and forth, and we finally ended up with the one that we have now. So, okay, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to show you really quickly this guy. And I'm going to show you how we do some of the hard surface stuff, like capes. It's not really hard surface, but I guess a surface with a thickness. I use this technique over and over and over again. You might have seen, if you saw me in the sculpt off, I made these leaf arms, and this is the technique that I use to make those leaf arms. And what I do is I take this topology brush, and the item that you're going to do this to can't have any subdivision levels. Find the button here. So what I'll usually do is I'll duplicate it, and then I will get rid of the lower subdivision levels. So say I'm going to make like Boba Fett's wrist guard around here. And so what I'll do is I'll take this topology brush, and I'll just draw some quick topology on there. I don't usually do symmetry. I'll build it first, and then I'll mirror it over. And this is really, really nice, because you can just, because I come from the Maya world, I'm still holding on to polygons for some reason. So I kind of like this technique of just drawing polygons on the surface. And everybody asks us, how do you keep it so clean? And the answer is, touch it as little as possible. So meaning when you're sculpting on it with clay buildup, you're making lumps and bumps, and it's getting nutty. So that's great for concepting and figuring it out, but once you get there, you can retop the surface and rebuild it, and then subdivide it down. You'll see right here, I'll show you, and then it becomes clean. Try to remember the guy from Eat 3D, his name Mike Palpovich. Am I destroying his name? Pavlovich, I'm borrowing his techniques here, so. Yeah, his hard surface video is great. So once I get something like this, you know, I can go all the way around the arm. I can do little bits and pieces. It doesn't matter. I did Loki. I did his cape this way. What I did with his cape really quick was I took a sphere, and he was already posed down in this hunch pose with his cane, scepter, whatever. Old Loki.
Old man Loki.
Old man Loki. So he was already posed down there, and so what I did is I just seriously just took a glob of a big sphere, and I just posed it into the shape, and I'm only paying attention to the top surface of the sphere, and it's making the undulations of that cape, and I have this cloth brush, and I made it the surface, and then I just drew over the top of it just like this. So once I get to this point, I turn the draw size down to 1, because if the draw size is any thicker than that, it's going to actually make thickness when I tap on the surface like this. See how it has thickness? And if that's what you want, that's great. But usually in the game world, we make normal maps. And normal maps, when the envelope is outside of this arm and it's gonna ray trace back down to that arm and capture these elements, if it's a 90-degree wall, it's not going to see it, and you're not going to have it in your normal map. So I use panel loops, so then I can control the bevel on the edges, and I'll show you how I do that. So undo that, and if you turn your draw size down to 1, then tap on the surface. So now it makes, you can kind of see it in there. I'm going to solo this. Then I'm going to hide it. Hand solo. Right. All right. It's peanut gallery. Come on. So what I want to do is I want to see how the two separate poly groups. I want to get rid of the arms. There we go. Okay. So now I have my special menu, but I don't have a hotkey. Delete hidden. And then so at this level, this is the level I want right here, because then I can go in here and I can just tweak all these little verts to make this really buttery smooth and flow the way I want it. And I can also pull it out away from the arm if I want to. And with the panel loops, you can either extrude it inward or outward. So let's see, I'm just going to pull it out a little bit and extrude inward. We doing okay on time? Okay. Okay. So we always pay attention to flow and straights and curves, like these arms. We always look for straights with curves in it. Anyway, so to make this thickness here, go to edge loop, and then panel loops. And what I'll do is I'll just turn this down to 1, because I only want 1 loop around the edge. I'll turn polish off to 0, turn bevel down to about 13 or so, and then this is the bevel profile. And by default, it's shaped like this. And this is the profile as if you are looking at something like this, and this is the profile, and this is the bevel. So then you're turning it like this, and now you're looking at it. Does that make any sense? So I want it to bevel on an edge like this. So let's see. So I will take care of these dots. If you drag off the panel, it'll pop those points off. So now I have this bevel shape, and then I'll just try it. So it's too thin, and it's going out. So I can change my elevation to -100. I'm going to turn the bevel up a little bit and turn up the thickness. Try that. And you just go back and forth until it looks like what you want. Then, this is the trick. See how the ring is all one polygroup? Well, I want it to be polygroups on each side, so then I can crease it. So I have this, let me see, I'll show you where it really is instead of going to my shortcuts so you'll know where it is. So if you go to polygroups, it's got all these menus open. Polygroups, right there. Then it's polygroup by normals. And then I beveled it too much, 1 second. So it looks at, it's trying to find 90s or very close to those edges because it's looking to group it by the direction of the normal. So if it's too close, it's going to group them together. And there's a little slider right here, this max min, that you can adjust to fix it. But I'm going to go back and make the bevel a little less. So really quick. No. Where is it? Oh, up here. Okay, turn this back down. Okay. Back to polygroups, and then group by normal. Okay, that's what you want. Then you'll see that I have every end is a different polygroup. And then what I can do is I can go to, back to geometry, go to crease. Where is it at? There it is. Okay, so there's crease by polygroup right here, crease PG. And what I want to do is I want to turn this crease level to 3. That means you'll subdivide it, it'll hold that crease for 3 subdivision levels, and then it'll let it go after 4, 5, and 6, however high you go up, and that will create this nice beveled crease. So turn that to 3, hit crease polygroup, and you'll see it'll indicate it by these little lines right here. And then you can just subdivide it down. Oh, come on. Did you guys watch that? Let me undo it. So subdivide, it's going to bevel right there. So now this edge isn't, it's not going to cut your eye. It's like a little. So then you can come in here and you can just, smooth it out, get it super clean. But that's how we do our really clean stuff. And you can see how it's kind of lumpy and bumpy in here. And how you even push it further is you want to go back down to the lower subdivision levels and straighten that out with your move tool. Just get the nice flow going back in there, divide it back up. And that's how I do all the capes and the wrist guards and pretty much everything. And so what happens when your art director comes and says, that cape, I don't want to go in this way, I want to go in that way. Like, well, now what am I going to do? If I start moving this, it's going to look like crap, even at the low subdivision levels, because it has 2 sides to it. So how do you move something with 2 sides? Well, you don't. What you do is you delete everything back down to a single polygon plane again. Then you make all your edits on that single polygon plane, and then you go through and you add the thickness right back in because it's so easy. So that's how I do it. That's how we do, I don't know if that's how you do your cloth, like all of Darth Maul's twirly bits. You just do all these single pane panels, and then you just add the thickness after you're happy with the placement. That way you're not getting lost in, move the poly land. So, I think that's all I got. Oh, no, I don't. Hold on a second. Hold the phone.
The secrets of the universe.
Yes. I have a movie.
There's a question coming in as well while
All
you're
right.
loading.
Oh boy.
Richard Lighton says, ZBrush Summit, could you use ZModeler to the same effect?
ZModeler, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to?
I found out that ZModeler, I've been using that for all of my accessories. Like, I've been bringing in simple instances and just building out little things really quickly and found great, building that for simple geometry. And then, using Shane's techniques of deleting sides and then beveling that out, or just using that and putting in little bevels or anything like that. So yeah, you could use ZModeler very much with this. So yeah.
Yep, yeah. I'm still trying to get my head around the whole thing because it's so deep, and but it's very, very nice that I don't have to leave ZBrush to use it. I can just like those little pieces on Boba Fett's helmet. I'll quickly make those, and so like also the part around his helmet that goes down like that. I use the exact same technique that I just showed you guys, and I just draw that part on the helmet, extract it off, bevel it, and there you go. It's really kind of cheaty. So I was just going to show you this Boba Fett reveal movie really quick. This is the reel they showed at E3 this year when they revealed Boba Fett. So I'll show you this. See if it opens. There's sound on this too. You guys have sound?
Pretty cool.
Yay, Boba Fett.
Awesome. Not bad for a Saturday afternoon.
What's that?
Not bad for a Saturday afternoon. One more time.
Thank you.
Get some of the brown stuff flowing. You were going to say something. You had your finger.
Yeah. I had one more thing to interject right there.
Uno más.
Because we are making a game and not just toys. A lot of people had questions about, well, where do your game characters come from? And you saw that the T-pose that I had of Boba Fett there. They come from the T-pose. So what we do is we take the T-pose and we retop right on top of it. And what we do is we top different parts. So from the waist cut down, we will merge all those together, and then we will retopologize right on top of that a game resolution mesh, or model, sorry. And then we will transfer the maps from the high to the low, and then we have to build it for game deformation. So we have to be really aware of that. And that way the character in the game is as close to, if not exact, as the model, the toy that you play with. So it really becomes that character when you put it on the reader. So yeah, any other questions?
It's way in the back. Hold on one second. Snake my way through here. You can stand if you like, sure. What are you drinking?
There's some B-roll while we're going.
Oh, he's got a monster. I thought it was a beer.
Is there any big difference between creasing by polygroups and setting the crease tolerance to an angle? Is there any reason?
Yeah, so crease by angle, if you have all your angles set just right, it works great, but I like to have more control than that. So that's why I'll go through and set up my polygroups exactly how I want, because when you're in there, well, for example, Boba Fett's shoulder right there, you can see his shoulder plate. There's a crease right down the middle, and I will polygroup that in two pieces, and it's not quite the angle that I need it, so I'd rather polygroup it together and do it that way. So I used to use crease by angle all the time, but until I discovered that trick.
Cool,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
There's more. I saw them on my way here. Slithering my way to the front. Pretty cool shots of in-game. Look at that. Go ahead here, sir. State your name for the record.
Oh, hi, I'm Chris.
This is Chris, everybody.
What perspective are you working on in ZBrush in order to figure out the collectible size and in-game?
What?
Standard perspective.
Kind of perspective?
Like, what do you like camera angle? What do you
Like
mean by perspective?
The draw size, I guess, or
The-
perspective?
Like the scale.
Like the
I think he means a focal length. That's what you get. Focal length is what you're getting at. Inside of ZBrush, what do you get your focal length set at?
Default.
yeah,
Is
just
the default, which is
one,
50,
Yeah.
50?
Yeah.
Quick, it's
Yeah,
50,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
From
just
my memory.
defaults.
50.
And
You
we
know-
played around with like that, but really because it's it's manipulated compared to like what is actually in scene.
Right.
We turn it on and off so much that it and we really we base so much more on printed prototypes than we get a lot from ZBrush, but we really judge a lot from like what's actually printed in front of us. So we know what needs to be punched, what needs to be thickened and bigger, so we do a little bit of hands-on treatment too.
I have one thing to add to that.
Yes.
We use Keyshot a lot. We use it for all of our marketing shots. Yeah, Keyshot is absolutely amazing. So thank you for the bridge. Thank you for Keyshot. Yeah. So
Can we try that again? Let's try this again. Let's try it. Yeah, they just.
Keyshot.
Can we try it again, maybe? Because the people at home are like tapping on their keyboards.
We did not have Keyshot for Infinity 1, so we had to, and that's when Matt came on. It was at the poor Matt.
Poor
At the
Matt.
end of Infinity 1, we had to make high-resolution cinematic versions of our characters, just so we could render them in Maya with the lighting setup and everything we need. And now, no more. We just push that baby right over to Keyshot, and we have a guy, Nason Hardcastle. He's amazing he knows Keyshot inside and out now and makes our stuff look really good for marketing and all that stuff.
It's got a pretty cool last name, Hardcastle. One more
Hardcastle.
question over here. Go ahead.
Hey guys, Daniel. Quick question for Retopo. What do you guys like to use for your game res models? You jump into Maya? What do you do for Retopo?
Are we
3D
allowed to
code.
say? Yeah, we use 3D Coat.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. We also use 3D Coat for UVs, and we use Topogun or XNormal to transfer maps. So,
Hey, look at that walker. Cool. More questions. Who's clapping back there? What are you? Just a minute. I saw a hand. Hey, there he is. I thought that was you. State your name. Oh, you didn't have a question before? Yes. What is it? Well, we're here now.
Hi. So when you guys were talking about posing originally, and so you're still kind of in the concept phase or finishing the character, you said that you take it and rig it in Maya, and then you transpose it in ZBrush. Why is that? Is that just because of the use of it with the game, or? I guess what I'm saying is, why don't you just transpose it?
So actually,
straight in
what we do is we take an ugly decimated model from ZBrush. Like we decimate the crap out of it, rig it a super primitive rig, and we send it over. And one of our concept artists actually he roughs out a bunch of poses just so we can get a ton of ideas on the table. And then once we kind of settle on an idea, we just use that as reference. We just take that OBJ and we just use it as reference, and we riff off that. And we don't follow it 100%, and sometimes we divert from it, but we just put it in the scene as reference, and we can we kind of just, it's kind of like an image plane almost. We use it where we need it, and then we just build off of it. Yeah.
just more for exploratory reasons
Yeah.
than anything. And we can't take the high-resolution version into Maya because it'll cry. So
And, you're right. And we just can't pose a million versions in ZBrush because it just takes too long.
yeah, it's impractical.
Yeah.
So.
From
Yep.
the tweet feed, we have a question from Fernando de Ivone. What's the shortest project deadline you've had to work on?
Say that. What's
Fernando wants to know, Fernando, hey, what's the shortest deadline you've had to work on?
shortest deadline?
Yeah,
Oh, man. What, a day? I
one
guess.
day.
Yeah, one day.
Yikes.
Randall, yeah.
Better you than me.
Yeah. And Yeah, that's hard to say.
Okay, hang on one second. We got another
And
question
Okay.
from Zachary Williams. Would like to know how the guys balance their time between watching tutorials and working on home projects and work.
Watching tutorials. We
Says
have.
he would like to know how you guys balance your time between watching tutorials, working on home projects, and work. Are you doing some construction at your house that I'm not aware of? I'm kidding. Home improvements.
We make tutorials.
Right.
But to learn ZBrush back in the day, we had to watch quite a few. But there's seasons in game development that come and go, and right now we're kind of in the beginning season, and so we have we should have some time to train and stuff like that. But now we're just into it. But then towards the end of the development cycle, we basically live there, and but we're kind of the frontliners. We're first to the battle, and so our season's early, and we have to have all the characters done and hand it off to rigging and modeling, or rigging and animation, so they can get going and get testing all these moves that you're seeing in the game. So we're first. We have to get all our stuff done first.
Yeah.
And I think it's there's also like, you know, I still watch a bunch of tutorials and try to learn a bunch, because, I mean, someone asked me, like, so as an artist, like, what do you recommend? And to me, I think the biggest thing is, like, stay hungry. Stay hungry as an artist, because I think it happens to everyone, is like you get to a point of like, dude, I feel good, like I'm great, you know, and then you get punched in the stomach, or you know, you something happens, you know.
A new version of ZBrush.
Of ZBrush comes out.
Yeah, we call that the
What's
great
the Z modeler
equalizer.
stuff?
Sculpt off happens, and like Furio's just making.
We'll talk more about that. Yeah.
But it's, you know, you just have to stay hungry, and you always have to like want to learn and keep going, and there's always 5 minutes in a day that you can sculpt or sketch or do something to progress as an artist. And I think, you know, just having that drive to allow yourself to push. I mean, I think that's
Also,
all
I'd
you
like
need
to
do.
draw attention to the fact that you're both very prolific in giving back to the community. I was going to save this for later, but maybe some people will tune out. Shame on you during the interview. But you have both a lot of learning resources on your websites. So kudos.
Yeah, thanks.
you can
Thanks.
Tune in. Thanks again.
Yeah.
Wow. Unbelievable. And looky. Look what the wind blew in. Finally back to his rightful post. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend and yours, Paul Gabry.
Hey, thanks, Daniel. I don't know, where are we at? Were you guys done?
I don't know.
We could be.
Well, we could be.
Is there more questions?
Yeah, are there any more questions that you guys have here before we let them go to the back to the interview room? And
open this
Furio is next as our next presenter too. So she's amazing. So if you want to know a good workflow of sculpting hard surface in ZBrush, Furio is one of those guys that you definitely want to check out and watch. Because
great.
his workflow is really powerful, and how he does his hard surface, and his design is just amazing. As what they keep bringing up here with his sculpt off, and in the green room too, and they keep bringing up Furio for the sculpt off. And they're watching us right now, so I just probably laughing right now. So thanks, guys. You guys are finito.
Yeah. Can we do it?
Hey guys, Disney Interactive, Shane, and Matt Thorup.